The message arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Elena Reyes was in the middle of her second cup of coffee when the detection algorithms flagged something unusual. She'd spent 15 years at the SETI Advanced Research Center without a single meaningful hit. Her colleagues had long since moved on to more promising careers, leaving her with a skeleton crew and dwindling funding. Dr. Reyes, her assistant, Tao Wei, appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, eyes wide. "I think you should see this." She took the tablet and stared at the data stream. The signal was unlike anything in their extensive database. Structured, repeating, and unmistakably artificial. But what caught her attention wasn't just the pattern. It was the strength. "This can't be right," she muttered. "Where's it coming from?" "That's the thing," said Tao. "It's coming from Proxima Centauri b." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Their nearest stellar neighbor, just over 4 light years away. Close enough that a message sent today would reach them in her lifetime. "I have run the authentication protocols 3 times, Tao continued. "It's real, Dr. Reyes." The next 48 hours were a blur. The signal contained a complex set of mathematical principles that served as a Rosetta Stone for the language that followed. Elena assembled a team of linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists to decode it. The world's most powerful quantum computers worked around the clock, unraveling the alien syntax that on the 3rd day. They had a translation. Elena sat alone in her office, reading the message for the 7th time, to the inhabitants of the 3rd planet of the Sol system. "We are the Xelian collective of Proxima Centauri b. Our civilization has existed for 50,000 of your Earth years. We have observed your world since your species first harnessed electricity that we send this message in our final days. A stellar anomaly threatens our planet with imminent destruction. Our scientists predict total extinction within 16 Earth years, that we possess technological knowledge that your species has not yet achieved, including sustainable fusion, gravitational manipulation, and biological immortality. We offer to share this knowledge freely. In exchange, we ask for sanctuary. Our population numbers 8 million. We have the technology to travel to your world, but lack the resources to construct the necessary vessels. If you choose to help us, we will transmit the designs for these vessels, which your industries could construct. We would arrive as refugees, not conquerors. If you choose not to respond, we accept our fate with understanding that we await your reply." Elena had already forwarded the message to the UN Secretary General and the heads of major space agencies. Now, she sat in the pre-dawn darkness, contemplating what they had received. Help was coming, in the form of government officials, military personnel, and scientists from around the world. But for now, in this moment of solitude, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their cosmic neighbors were asking to be saved. Commander Michael Chun of the United Nations Space Command stood at the podium, facing the emergency session of the General Assembly. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the translated alien message. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we have confirmed the authenticity of this transmission. It originates from Proxima Centauri b and contains technological information that exceeds our current scientific understanding. There is no doubt that we are dealing with an advanced alien civilization in distress." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices. The Secretary General called for order, and gradually the room quieted. "The Security Council has established a special committee to evaluate our response options," Chun continued. "Dr. Elena Reyes, who first detected the signal, will present the scientific perspective." Elena approached the podium, acutely aware that this would be the most important presentation of her life. She'd barely slept in the weeks since the discovery, dividing her time between analyzing the signal and preparing for this moment. "The Xelians have included proof of their claims," she explained, displaying complex schematics on the screen. "These are designs for fusion reactors that operate at room temperature with minimal radiation. Our physicists have verified the theoretical foundations. They're sound." She clicked to the next slide. They have also sent preliminary blueprints for the vessels they would need. Construction would require international cooperation on an unprecedented scale, but it's within our industrial capabilities. A representative from Russia raised his hand. And what guarantee do we have that these aliens come in peace? This could be the prelude to an invasion. The Xelians addressed this concern directly in their subsequent transmissions, Elena replied. They have shared their biological data. They evolved in an environment with higher gravity and different atmospheric composition than Earth. They would require specially designed habitats to survive here and pose no biological threat to our ecosystem. Even so, interjected the Chinese delegate, 8 million refugees is no small number. Where would they live? How would they integrate into our society? They have proposed establishing settlements in our solar system's asteroid belt, Elena answered. They are adapted to living in artificial environments and have no desire to settle on Earth itself. The debate raged for hours. Some nations saw tremendous opportunity in the alien technology. Others feared cultural contamination or religious upheaval. Military powers worried about security implications, while humanitarian organizations advocated for a moral obligation to help. As the session adjourned for the day, Elena found herself cornered by the American representative, Senator Diana Howard. Dr. Reyes, said Howard, my constituents are divided on this issue. Half see it as our duty to help. The other half fear it's a trap. What's your personal assessment? Elena chose her words carefully. Senator, I have spent my career searching for evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. Now that we have found it, I believe we have a responsibility to respond. The knowledge they are offering could solve our energy crisis, extend human lifespans, and accelerate our development by centuries. And if it's a deception, then it's the most elaborate one in human history. The Xelians have been completely transparent, answering every question we have posed. They have even shared their cultural history, their art, music, philosophy. They are a species facing extinction, reaching out to the only other technological civilization within their reach. Howard studied her for a moment. Thank you for your candor, Doctor. I hope you are right. In the weeks that followed, humanity fractured along new lines. Traditional alliances gave way to pro-Xelian and anti-Xelian factions. Protests erupted in major cities worldwide. Religious leaders issued conflicting interpretations, some welcoming the aliens as fellow children of creation, others condemning them as demonic imposters. Elena found herself thrust into the public spotlight as the human face of the contact effort. She received death threats and marriage proposals in equal measure. Through it all, she maintained communication with the Xelians, explaining the complexities of human politics and requesting patience 0.3 months after the initial contact. The UN announced a global referendum. For the first time in history, every adult on Earth would vote on a single question. Should humanity help the Xelians? The day before the vote, Elena received a private message from the Xelian representative she'd been corresponding with, a being who called itself Nexar. Elena, we understand your species' hesitation. Fear of the unknown is a universal trait. We faced similar divisions when our ancestors first encountered evidence of your civilization. Whatever your people decide, we wish to express our gratitude for your advocacy. Your willingness to consider helping a species entirely unknown to you demonstrates qualities we have long admired in humans: compassion, curiosity, and courage. If your world chooses not to assist us, please know that we harbor no resentment. The universe is indifferent to our individual fates, but the connections we forge across the void give meaning to our existence. However brief, I hope we may one day meet, but if not, it has been an honor to know you across the stars. Elena read the message twice, then closed her eyes, feeling the weight of tomorrow's decision pressing down on her. The fate of an entire civilization rested in humanity's hands. The global referendum results came in on a rainy Sunday evening in Geneva. Elena sat in the United Nations Control Center, surrounded by dignitaries and diplomats, watching as the numbers trickled in from the last remote voting stations. Final tally: 51.3% in favor of helping the Xelians, 48.7% against a majority, but the narrowest possible one. The Secretary General approached the microphone with a grave expression. "The people of Earth have spoken," he announced. "In accordance with the referendum, we will offer assistance to the Xelian collective." The room erupted in a mixture of cheers and protests. Elena felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by apprehension. A fractured humanity implementing such a monumental project seemed like a recipe for disaster. Her fears proved well-founded. Within days, 3 major powers, Russia, Brazil, and Indonesia, announced they would not participate in the construction effort, despite the referendum results. Religious extremists launched attacks against research facilities associated with the project. The global economy fluctuated wildly as markets tried to anticipate the impact of alien technology 0.6 months into the planning phase. With construction barely begun on the first vessel components, tragedy struck. A coordinated terrorist attack hit manufacturing facilities in Japan, Germany, and the United States. 83 people died, and critical infrastructure was destroyed. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session. Senator Howard, now heading the American delegation to the Xelian Response Committee, looked exhausted as she addressed the assembly. "We are facing unprecedented opposition," she reported. "Public support is waning as costs rise and progress stalls. Intelligence agencies report more attacks in planning stages. At our current rate, we won't complete even one vessel within the Xelians' time frame." The Indian representative stood. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The referendum was close, and circumstances have changed. We could offer the Xelians our knowledge and resources without bringing them to our solar system. Help them build shelters on their own world to survive the stellar event." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Elena, invited as a scientific advisor, requested permission to speak. With respect, she said, "That's not an option. The Xelians have been clear about the nature of the threat. Their star is entering an unstable phase that will render their entire system uninhabitable. They need relocation, not mitigation." "Then perhaps," said the French delegate, "we should acknowledge our limitations. We cannot save them all. What if we proposed a more modest rescue? Their scientists, their cultural leaders, a representative population that we could feasibly transport." More nodding heads. Elena felt a growing despair. After all the promises, humanity was preparing to retreat from its commitment. "I request permission to consult with the Xelians on these proposals," she said finally. The Secretary General nodded. "Granted. We will reconvene when you have their response." The message Elena received from Nexar was not what she expected. That "We anticipated this difficulty. Your species has never united on this scale before, and we asked too much too quickly. We have a counterproposal. Instead of you building vessels for us, allow us to send you the designs for a different technology, a quantum entanglement communication device that would enable instantaneous exchange of information across any distance. With this, we could transfer our consciousness, our memories, personalities, and knowledge directly into storage systems on Earth. Our physical bodies would perish, but our minds would survive, eventually to be housed in synthetic forms your technology could more easily produce. This would require far fewer resources and pose minimal security concerns for your people. In return, we would still share all our technological knowledge. Please present this option to your leaders. Time grows short for us, Elena. We feel the heat of our star increasing with each rotation. Elena stared at the screen, stunned by the implications. The Xelians were willing to sacrifice their physical existence to survive as a digital species. It was both heartbreaking and pragmatic. When she presented the proposal to the Security Council, the reaction was mixed. Some saw it as an elegant solution. Others raised concerns about artificial intelligence and the ethics of synthesized consciousness. How do we know these digital entities wouldn't infiltrate our computer systems? Asked the Russian representative. They could spread throughout our networks like a virus. The Xelians have provided detailed containment protocols, Elena countered, and they have offered to transfer in small batches, allowing us to establish secure systems between transfers. The debate continued for weeks. Meanwhile, construction on the physical vessels ground to a halt as nations reallocated resources toward the potential new direction. 4 months later, with still no decisive action taken, Elena received an urgent message from Nexar. Our scientists have detected accelerated stellar activity. Previous models were conservative. We now estimate total habitability collapse within 7 years, not 16. Elena, we need your answer. Can you help us in our new proposed form, or must we accept extinction? Commander Michael Chin stood before the hastily assembled Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon Situation Room. The atmosphere was tense. No one had expected to be called to an emergency session at 3 in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Chin began. 2 hours ago, our lunar observatory detected multiple launches from the surface of Proxima Centauri b. The Xelians have deployed vessels. Based on their trajectory and acceleration, they will reach our solar system in approximately 4.3 years. Stunned silence filled the room, followed by an eruption of questions. Are they armed? How many vessels? Why weren't we informed? Chun raised his hands for quiet. We have received a transmission explaining their actions. Dr. Reyes will translate. Elena stepped forward, her face pale. The message reads, "To the people of Earth, we apologize for this unilateral action. Our star's degradation has accelerated beyond our projections. Faced with certain extinction and your continued deliberations, a faction of our society launched rescue vessels without consensus. They carry 300,000 of our people, primarily scientists, engineers, and cultural preservationists. They did not come as invaders, but as desperate refugees. We implore you to understand that this represents less than 4% of our population. The remainder have chosen to remain and face our fate together. Please forgive this breach of diplomatic protocol. We had no alternative." The room exploded again. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs called for immediate defensive preparations. The Secretary of Defense demanded contingency plans for orbital interception. Elena listened to the military minds planning what amounted to shooting down lifeboats from a sinking ship. She thought of Nexar, who had likely stayed behind with the majority of the Xelians. Her eyes met Chin's across the room. His expression mirrored her own discomfort. "If I may," Chun said, cutting through the tactical discussions. "Before we commit to a military response, we should consider our options carefully. These vessels will take over 4 years to reach us. We have time to prepare, either to welcome them or to confront them. But whatever we decide will define humanity for generations to come." The news of the Xelian launches dominated global headlines. Initial panic gave way to polarized debate. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Scientific communities clamored for preparation rather than confrontation. Religious groups fractured further, with some declaring the coming arrivals to be salvation, others the apocalypse. In the midst of the chaos, Senator Howard approached Elena with an unexpected proposal. "Dr. Reyes, I need your help with something unorthodox," she said, leading Elena into a secure conference room where Commander Chun and a handful of other influential figures from various nations waited. "We are forming an independent initiative. Off the books, privately funded." Elena scanned the faces around the table. "What kind of initiative?" "A welcome committee," replied Chun. "While governments debate shooting them down, we're going to prepare to receive them peacefully. The quantum communication technology the Xelians sent us, we have had a team working on it in secret. It's functional." Elena stared at him in disbelief. "You built it? Without authorization?" "Plausible deniability," said Howard with a thin smile. "Sometimes progress requires operating in gray areas. We have established contact with the vessels. They're essentially arcs, self-contained ecosystems with their population in stasis. Minimal crew, minimal resource requirements. They're not looking to land on Earth. They're aiming for the asteroid belt, just as they originally proposed. "What do you need from me?" Elena asked. "Legitimacy," said Sean. "You're the face of this first contact, the person who's communicated most extensively with them. We need you to help us build public support while we develop the infrastructure to receive them. This is highly irregular," Elena said carefully. "So, is the arrival of refugees from another star system?" Howard replied. "Extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary measures." Elena thought of Nexar's messages, the growing desperation as their pleas went unanswered while humanity debated. She thought of the majority of Xelians who had chosen to remain behind rather than force themselves upon an unwilling Earth. "I'm in," she said. For the next 3 years, Elena became the center of what they called the Proxima Initiative. She traveled the world, sharing what she had learned about Xelian culture, science, and ethics. She debated detractors, presented evidence, and gradually built a coalition of supporters spanning nations, religions, and political ideologies that it wasn't easy. She received more death threats. An assassination attempt came close enough to leave a scar along her ribcage. But for every violent opponent, there were thousands who listened, considered, and ultimately joined the cause. Meanwhile, Chun and Howard coordinated the practical aspects. Using the Xelians' designs, they began constructing habitats in the asteroid belt. Mining operations expanded, nominally for Earth benefit, but redirected toward creating the infrastructure the refugees would need. Private space companies provided launch capabilities, universities contributed research, and wealthy benefactors supplied funding. Not everyone was convinced. Military forces continued developing countermeasures, and some nations maintained their stance that the approaching vessels should be intercepted and destroyed before reaching the solar system. The decisive moment came 16 months before the Xelians' projected arrival. A coalition of hardline nations announced their intention to deploy an antimatter weapon system to intercept the vessels at the edge of the solar system. Elena and her team took their most daring step. Using the quantum communication device, they arranged a direct transmission from the lead Xelian vessel to every connected device on Earth. The face that appeared on screens worldwide belonged to a being similar to but distinctly different from a human, with iridescent skin, large compound eyes, and a delicate skeletal structure. It identified itself as Alara, navigator of the vessel Hope's horizon. "People of Earth," it began in perfect, synthesized English. "I speak to you from across the void between stars. We are not abstractions or faceless aliens. We are people, like you, with hopes and fears, with children and elders, with art and music and stories we wish to preserve." The transmission continued, showing the interior of the vessel, the stasis chambers where families slept together, the cultural archives containing millennia of Xelian history, the modest personal belongings each refugee had been permitted to bring. "We come with open hands," Alar concluded. "We ask only for a place to exist, to contribute our knowledge to your civilization, and to remember our homeworld. We did not choose conflict. We chose hope. We hope you will choose the same." The transmission ended, leaving a stunned planet in its wake. 3 days later, the UN General Assembly convened an emergency session. The Secretary General looked out over the packed chamber. "We have received formal withdrawals of opposition from 27 nations previously aligned against receiving the Xelian refugees," he announced. "In light of this diplomatic shift and the groundswell of public support, I call for a new vote on comprehensive preparations for their arrival." The resolution passed with an overwhelming majority. The antimatter weapon project was officially suspended. The Proxima Initiative was brought under UN oversight, with expanded funding and resources. Elena watched from a gallery, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Beside her, Commander Chen nodded in satisfaction. "We still have work to do," he said quietly. "Yes," she agreed. "But for the first time, I believe we are going to succeed. The day the Xelian vessels entered the solar system, Earth held its breath. Astronomical observatories tracked their deceleration as they approached Jupiter's orbit. Military satellites monitored their every movement. News channels ran continuous coverage, speculating on humanity's imminent meeting with their cosmic neighbors. Elena stood in the control center of Ceres Station, the largest human outpost in the asteroid belt. Around her, an international team managed the final preparations for the arrival. The habitats were complete, massive structures hollowed out of selected asteroids, engineered to match Proxima Centauri B's gravity and atmospheric conditions. First vessel has matched orbit with Habitat Alpha, reported the flight controller. Docking sequence initiated. On the main screen, they watched as the sleek Xelian ship, its hull bearing the scars of a 4-year interstellar journey, extended a docking mechanism toward the human-built structure. The two technologies, one alien, one terrestrial, connected with a precision that belied their disparate origins. Secure dock achieved, announced the controller. Environmental systems syncing. Pressure equalizing. We have green status across all metrics. Elena exchanged glances with Senator Howard, who had traveled from Earth for this historic moment. Howard looked older now, the years of political battles evident in the lines on her face. What we have accomplished here, Howard said quietly, is nothing short of miraculous. Elena nodded. Not just the technical achievement, the fact that we overcame our fears. That's the real miracle. The first transfer of Xelian refugees began an hour later. Elena and a small welcoming committee waited in the habitat's reception chamber. The airlock cycled, and the door slid open. Alara entered first, moving with the careful deliberation of someone accustomed to a slightly different gravitational pull. Behind the navigator came a procession of Xelians, scientists, engineers, archivists, and families with children hiding shyly behind their parents. Through the quantum translator, Elena heard Alara's voice in her earpiece. On behalf of all who journey with me, I thank you for this sanctuary. We bring with us the gratitude of those left behind and a solemn promise to honor your trust. Elena stepped forward. On behalf of Earth and humanity, I welcome you to your new home. What begins today is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of ours together. The formal reception continued with speeches from UN representatives and Xelian elders. But for Elena, the most profound moment came later, when she encountered a young Xelian child standing alone by a viewport, staring out at the stars. "Can you see it from here?" the child asked through the translator. "Our son." Elena moved beside the small being, noting the delicate tendrils that quivered with what she had learned was emotional intensity. "Yes," she said, pointing to a faint star barely visible against the blackness. "That's Proxima Centauri." The child made a sound that the translator didn't catch, perhaps too personal or primal for the algorithm to interpret. Then, "My parents told me that half of your people didn't want us to come." Elena chose her words carefully. Change is difficult for any species. Fear is a natural response to the unknown. But we learn, we grow, and we overcome our fears. Our historians taught us that this is humanity's greatest strength, the child said. Not your technology or your numbers, but your capacity to transcend your limitations. To choose compassion even when fear would be easier. Elena felt a lump form in her throat. We don't always live up to that ideal. But you did this time, the child replied simply. You saved us when you didn't have to. Our people will remember this always. In the months that followed, the integration continued. The remaining Xelian vessels arrived and docked with their designated habitats. Scientific exchanges began, with the first Xelian fusion reactor successfully activated in the asteroid belt, providing energy not just for the refugee settlements, but also for human outposts. Not everything went smoothly. Cultural misunderstandings occurred. Some human factions maintained their opposition, and security remained a constant concern. But with each passing day, The extraordinary became more ordinary. Humans and Xelians, working side by side, began to see each other not as aliens, but as colleagues, partners. Perhaps one day, friends. 1 year after the arrival, Elena received a message through the quantum communicator. It originated from Proxima Centauri b, where the remaining Xelians were witnessing the accelerating death of their star. Elena Reyes, this is Nexar. I record this as our final transmission. Our atmosphere thins. The surface temperatures rise beyond sustainability. Soon, communication will become impossible. I wanted you to know that we who remain behind take comfort in knowing that our culture survives through those you welcomed. When our star finally consumes our world, something of us will endure because of humanity's choice. In our ancient philosophy, there's a concept called zenith, the light reflected from one consciousness to another across the darkness. You have been zenith to us, Elena, a reflection of hope when we face the void. The universe is vast and largely indifferent, but you have proven that conscience and compassion can exist even between species born under different suns. This knowledge sustains us in our final days. Farewell from Proxima Centauri b. May our people's shared future honor the sacrifice of those who remain behind. The transmission ended. Elena sat alone in her quarters on Ceres Station, watching as astronomical instruments recorded the increasing solar flares from Proxima Centauri. In a few years, those same instruments would witness the star's final destructive phase, erasing the cradle of Xelian civilization. But not the Xelians themselves. Not their knowledge, their art, their history, or their future potential. Those had been preserved, not by unanimity or perfect consensus, but by enough humans choosing hope over fear, connection over isolation. Elena thought of the child at the viewport, gazing toward a doomed homeworld while standing safely in a new one. She thought of all the debates, the protests, the political maneuvering that had nearly prevented this outcome. In the end, humanity had not spoken with one voice. It rarely did. But enough voices had joined together to write a new chapter in the story of two species. A story that would continue. Now, among the stars of AS, she looked out at the asteroid belt, where Xelian dwellings now glowed alongside human outposts. Elena recalled a quote from an ancient Earth philosopher. We are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface, but connected in the deep. Separated by evolution, biology, and the vast distances between stars, humanity and the Xelians had found that connection in the deep. Not perfect, not without struggle, but real. And in a universe as vast and cold as theirs, that connection might be the most precious thing of all.